Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the November session of the Winners Circle. It's always good to begin with bringing clarity to what we do. We bring in speakers from our community to come in and talk to us about how to succeed in today's society. Just what does it take to enjoy success? And I couldn't be more excited for our speaker today. We remember that our brain is always at its best when we're curious. So throughout this presentation, make sure you're thinking about really good questions that we can have for the end of our presentation, a good Q&A. Also remember that we're communicating to our speaker, our body language. So let's make sure we're sitting up straight, we're giving great eye contact, and we're giving our speaker our best. So it's with that I want to introduce our 8th grader, Rhiannon Brown, to introduce our speaker. Rhiannon?
Coach Jeff Smith is the associate head coach of the men's basketball team at Oakland University. He is a native of Carson City, Michigan, and played college basketball at Alma College. Coach Smith has traveled all over the United States and beyond, and speaking to organizations and student athletes, not only about basketball, but what it takes to succeed in life. He recently traveled to Greece this past summer with his team. He has coached many players who are currently in the NBA or playing professionally overseas. Let's give Coach Smith an East Hills welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
You have no idea how much of a privilege and truly an honor it is for me to be here. When Mr. Masucci asked me to be a part of this a couple of months ago, it took us a minute to get it onto the calendar and find the right time, but I was thrilled to be able to be here and share some things with you and hopefully learn from you as well. Because, you know, when he talked to me a little bit about the concept of what the Winners Circle is and some things for us to talk about, I thought about, you know, over the last couple of days, some things that I wanted to share with you and maybe some topics to get into. And I know at the end we'll have a question and answer session, and I look forward to your questions. And I really wanted to touch on three things as we get going here this morning. And first, as we talk about trying to define winning and becoming a winner, one of the things I've always believed that's really important for successful people is that they do something to separate themselves in a positive way, but to separate themselves from others. And the fact that all of you are here at 7:15 in the morning when it's 25 degrees outside, that is a step in the right direction. Because I think that what happens so many times throughout the course of life, and it seems to be more and more this way now, and I'm sure you experience this even in your school on a daily basis, is a lot of people want to find excuses to not be successful. They want to blame others. They don't want to take accountability for their own action, responsibility for their own lives. And the fact that you're all sitting here at 7:15 says two things to me. One, that this is really important to you, and two, that you have people in your lives that believe it's important too. Raise your hand if you drove yourself to school this morning. Exactly. All right, so you had somebody who got up earlier than normal, and I'm sure it may have disrupted the normal routine in your household because they know that it's important for you to be here so that you can separate yourselves. Now, when I say separate yourselves, that doesn't mean don't be friends with your friends or do anything that would be hurtful or negative to others. When I say separate yourselves, I mean I thought what Mr. Masucci said, our brains are at their best when they're curious. I think separating yourselves is constantly trying to find ways to make yourself the best version of who you are and who you can be. Being a part of the Winners Circle, what you read, what you watch, with whom you associate on a daily basis. If you surround yourself with people who are positive, curious, and want to be successful, it's amazing as to what that will do for you. I think it's important as you grow that you, like we said, what you read, reading it's become a lost art, unfortunately, but the more that you can read about being a winner, the more you're going to find success in your life. Reading biographies of successful men and women, whether it's in sports, in politics, in business, whatever it might be, reading about successful people, because this is one thing I do believe. Success leaves clues. And the more you read about people who are successful, what you'll find is you'll learn some things about how that person chose to go on their path and how their journey resulted in them being successful. But I think the other thing is the more that you read, the thing that you'll find is how many things successful people have in common. And it leaves those clues. And as you experience more things and read more things, you're going to see, wow, these three things continue to surface as the reasons why people are successful. But you have to do those things in order to be successful. You have to separate yourself by having the mindset that you're going to be successful, that you're going to do more than what other people do to be successful. In my own experience, being a college basketball coach, and we have players, every one of the guys on our team, when they were your age, into high school and now in college, what do you think they dream about? Where do they want to go? They all want to go to the NBA. They all say they want to be professional basketball players. The ones who get to do it, obviously they have the talent to be able to do it, but you know what usually really results in those guys who end up becoming high-level professionals and the ones who don't? What do you think it is? Their attitude is certainly part of it. Their effort and what they do on a daily basis. We have some guys on our team that think they should be playing 30 minutes a game for us, and they spend 0 minutes every day extra to become the best player they can be. And then they get upset when they don't play, and who do you think they blame? The coaches. They blame the coaches. Who really should they be blaming? Themselves. Because they're not willing to do things to separate themselves from others. If they don't do well in school, the first question we talk about is, how much time did you spend studying? Did you prepare for the exam? Usually the answer is, well, sort of. And again, success doesn't just happen. Winning doesn't just happen. You have to have the mindset that you're going to do things to separate yourselves from others to achieve success. I don't care what it is, whether you want to be a professional athlete, whether you want to be successful in business, whether you want to be a doctor, whatever it is, it makes no difference. If you do things to separate yourselves on a daily basis, you are going to find success. Which leads me into my second point that I would like to discuss with you. Today's day and age, especially for people who are your age, social media is a great thing in some forms. Unfortunately, what has happened in our world, and it's always been this, but now it is even greater apparent to everyone, it's very apparent to everyone now, is a comparative mindset. Now, a comparative mindset, you might say, what's that? A comparative mindset is when we look at something and we compare ourselves to what we see. And we say, wow, we were just talking about it. You see, go on vacation with your family, and your parents or your grandparents or whoever the case may be, they take you away and you go somewhere for a week, and you have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful time. Great lifelong memories, exhausted at the end of every day, and have had so much fun. You put your pictures up on social media, and only 25 people like it. What happens to you? You think, wow, maybe that wasn't such a great vacation. Did it really impact whether your vacation was good or not? But what happens is we look at that and we start to compare it. Or you see on Instagram or Snapchat things where people are laughing, joking, having such a good time, or they look this way, or they're doing this, or they have gone and been able to achieve something that you hoped you could achieve. And you start to compare yourself to that person. When the reality is that person is no different than you, and in some ways might be less happy, less successful, has won less, but sometimes we look at things on social media and we compare ourselves to other people. You might sit there and try to run for a position within your school, student council, whatever the case may be. You don't win in that instant. Well, now you compare yourself to someone else who won, and you start questioning all sorts of things. Why didn't I win? Well, I guess that person, he must be smarter than me, or she must be more popular than me. No, that person just happened to win that situation. It doesn't impact or change who you are. But when we compare ourselves to others, and believe me, this is not just for people your age, all of us as adults. For me as an assistant coach, I could look and say, well, how come that person got that assistant's job in the Big Ten? I've done this. If you do that, you are taking steps backwards and you're hurting your own growth. Mr. Masucci and I joke about it all the time. Root for everybody. If you root for everybody and you don't have to worry about anything else other than your own stuff, because you're not comparing yourself to anyone else. We talked with our team the other night after a game. We talk all the time about trying to raise others up to have your own success. Sometimes we all get caught up so much in what we're doing, but truly being successful, truly being a winner, means that you're taking the time to help others. And what you'll find is, as you start to raise others up, your success goes like this. Because who are you not thinking about anymore? Yourself. Not thinking about yourself anymore. When you're thinking about others, it frees you up. You lose any type of comparative mindset. You lose any type of anxiety and worry about your own stuff. You lose all focus on anything other than being successful as a group, and individually you will take right off. So I think the big thing is, don't compare yourselves to other people, right? Make sure that each and every day you try to do the best job you can to be successful, be your best version of yourself. If you can do that, you're going to be great. You're going to be successful. And the third thing that I wanted to talk with you about, and I think this might be the most important thing, find something in your life that you are passionate about, that you feel great about, that you absolutely say, I love that. And you know what? It might not lead you to financial wealth. It might not lead you to the most popular position in the world. But what happens is, if you have something that you're passionate about, you're going to become the best version of you. And what you're going to do is impact others in a truly, truly positive way. I think for me, I've been very, very lucky. I decided I wanted to be a college basketball coach when I was 19 years old. I was in college playing, I was working camps, wanted to be a coach. Countless people, friends of mine, people that were professors on campus, people who were teachers from high school, some of my family members told me, Jeff, you'll never do that. That's not, you got to get a different dream, you got to get a different thing. I said, no, this is what I'm going to do. And I worked, and I had tremendous passion for what I did. I worked every day to be the best version of myself. I learned from others, older coaches, younger coaches, players, and I tried to spend every minute of every day to do everything I could to be a college basketball coach. And I'm happy to say that I'm now in the middle of my 26th consecutive season as a college basketball coach. And my journey, well, thank you. Yeah. And I will tell you, along the way, I have had a comparative mindset and compared myself to others. I have been completely and totally absorbed in my own stuff and forgot about trying to help other people. I have spent time when I wasn't in a good place mentally from a positive attitude standpoint, because that's part of the journey. And as you go on your journey in whatever route and path you decide you want to do, there are going to be moments where it's not going to go great. There are going to be moments where you are going to fail miserably, but it's okay, because there are also going to be so many moments when it is unbelievably great. And that's what the journey is all about. And if you have passion for what you do, and you are determined that this is what you want to do, you will find your way to success. Success leaves clues, and if you're focused on trying to chase your dreams every day, you will get there. Now, it's almost 15 minutes. You guys have been unbelievably great, very, very attentive, but I really would like to have some interaction with you, so I would love to field some questions about anything that you want to ask me. What is it that I could, let's start with, you have one right here?
What was the biggest setback you've had in your career?
We got fired. When I was an assistant coach at the University of Utah, the head coach, our staff got let go. And it was a really interesting time in my life. My wife and I we had a daughter who was about to turn 2, and she was 8 months pregnant with our second daughter. And it was a very, very difficult time. And I went through a lot of moments of questioning it. I struggled to get another job. I was close. I interviewed here, I interviewed there, finished second, finished third. And I wasn't sure it was going to happen for me. And then eventually, I kept working at it. I stayed diligent, had a lot of help from people in the profession, and I got another job. We moved to California. I coached in Southern California for a year. And then I had the opportunity to come back to Michigan. But that was, it was tough. And that was what I was talking about. There are some unbelievably low moments that you're going to have as you go through life, but you just keep working your way through it. Try to stay as positive as you can and work your way through it. Yes?
How old were you, or what year did you start coaching?
I graduated from college. I was almost 22 years old when I graduated from college, and I started coaching when I was 22. And I coached for 1 year at Alma College where I played, 2 years at Albion College, which is here in the state of Michigan, 5 years at Central Michigan, 5 years at Oakland, 4 years at the University of Utah, 1 year at University of California, Riverside, 7 years back at Central Michigan, and then I just went back to Oakland University in July. Who was next? Right there.
Did you have any interest in being in the NBA?
Did I have to play? Yeah. I think I'm, like we were talking about, I think I'm no different than any kid that whatever they do, right? You always want to be there. When I was young, when I was your age, that was my goal. I wanted to try to be a basketball player. And then I realized as I got older that probably wasn't in the cards for me, and that's when I decided I wanted to coach.
How many teams that you coached made it to the NBA?
Players or teams? Players. I have coached 5 players who have played in the NBA. I think 5. And too many to count who have played professionally overseas and in the G League and that sort of thing.
Why did you want to go back to Oakland University?
It's a great question. And that's one of the things when you talk about success and winning. The guy who I work for at Oakland University, his name is Greg Campy. He has been the head coach at Oakland for 36 years, and he's won over 600 games in his career. And I know that Coach Campy is a winner. He does things the right way. And when he offered me an opportunity to come back and work for him again, I was thrilled to be able to do it. Way in the back. The best player that I ever coached? I think the most talented guy that I ever coached is a guy named Luke Neville, who was a 7'1" center. He was from Australia, and he was the MVP of the Mountain West Conference, the Defensive Player of the Year for 2 years in the Mountain West Conference. Played in the NBA for a while, and then ended up played in Russia and then played in Australia, where he's from, for a number of years. But super, super talented guy. He and then Raul Marshall, who I coached at Oakland, played in the NBA for 2 years. Those two guys probably the most talented.
Have you ever won any championships?
I have, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I've won every place where I have coached. If I've been there for more than 2 years, we've won a championship, and I've got a nice box with a bunch of championship rings in it. I don't ever wear them, but I keep them sitting there so I look at them. Success leaves clues. What else we got? The best coach for whom I've worked? That's a really good question. I think that, I don't know if I would say that I could point out one of them being the best. I think one of the things that's been really, really great for me, I have worked for seven different head coaches, and I've learned things from all of them. Again, having the mindset that success leaves clues. Each of the head coaches for whom I've worked has their own strengths and their own limitations, just like all of us. And I've been able to learn from each and every one of them. And someday when I become a head coach, I will be thankful that I've worked for them, because I've taken the things that were successful from them, and I'll be ready to use them.
So you said you wanted to be a coach when you were 19, but what did you want to be before you were 19?
That's a great question. When I went to Alma College, I went there because of the pre-law program. I wanted to be, I was going to go to law school, I was going to be an attorney, I was going to move to Washington, D.C., and start my career there. And the summer after my freshman year, I started working camps and just decided I wanted to coach. And in some ways, they're kind of similar. Any other questions?
Washington, D.C.
Well, you would think so. Sometimes as a coach, and especially in today's day and age, you have to be a politician, and at times you have to be an attorney. My parents were always really supportive. There were other people in the family that probably thought I should do something different. Very lucky, very fortunate, very thankful that my parents always told me to chase my dreams, and still do. And they've been extremely supportive from age 19, well before that, but professionally, since I decided what I wanted to do, they have supported me. And they have season tickets to all of our games and come and see us play. Mr. Masucci.
So you coach 18-year-old, 19-year-old men. Bless you. So what mistakes do you see these athletes make when they're younger that derails their dreams? Like, what are some things that are dream killers that, you know, they do?
Yeah, I think that, you know, you see it so oftentimes, especially before we coach them, a lot of times during the recruiting process. What do you think would be the number one thing that hurts players from having the ability to play in college? You can just yell it out. What do you think it is? Grades. Grades. So oftentimes people take that for granted. They get into high school and they don't realize that they haven't done what they need to do academically or what they need to do socially. Sometimes the decisions that we make, especially as we get older, are going to be very impactful on your life. And if you make the poor decision when it comes to your academics or your social life, the things that you choose to do, again, if you want to be successful, you have to separate yourself from others. And sometimes people that we are friends with, even as young adults and into adulthood, a lot of the guys that we have in college, they have friends or people that they hang out with who don't have the same dreams and ambitions as them. And they make the decision to do some of the things maybe they shouldn't do, and it ends up hurting their career, it ends up hurting their academic career. And what we always want for our guys is for them to be unbelievably successful for us now, but to set themselves up so that they're successful later in life. Obviously, they all want to try to play professionally. Eventually, they're not going to be able to play anymore. And then they have to go to work in the private sector or whatever it might be, and they have to set themselves up. And when they don't do well academically in college, now all of a sudden, it's time to go get a real job, and they're not prepared to do that, and it hurts them. Yes?
Which coach has taught you the most helpful things and the most things?
I would say that through the course of my career, Coach Campy, who I work for now, taught me a lot of things about the coaching profession, and a lot of those things I might not have really understood when I worked for him, and now 12 years later, they've helped me. I worked for a guy named Jim Boylan. He's the head coach of the Chicago Bulls in the NBA. I worked for him at the University of Utah. I learned so much from him from a basketball perspective, the teaching, the coaching part of it. And again, like all the men who I've worked for have taught me things, but those two probably have impacted me the most.
What was the hardest decision you ever had to make?
The hardest decision I ever had to make? That's a really good question and a really hard one to answer. I think in the professionally, the hardest decision I ever had to make was when we got let go at Utah and I got offered a job to coach in California. Financially, it wasn't a very good situation. And we had a newborn and a 2-year-old, and I had the opportunity to go into private business and do well financially, make a lot of money. Could have kept my family in the house where we were living, in our neighborhood with our friends, made a lot of money, and I had to make the decision as to whether or not I was going to continue to stay in coaching and take the financial hit, or if we were going to go in a different direction. And I'm thankful for my wife because she said, "You're a coach and you need to coach." And I made the decision to do that, which meant that we uprooted our family, moved to Southern California where we knew no one, which moved us further from our family than where we already were, and put me in a position where it was going to be tough to make it financially. But the decision paid off because a year later we were back in Michigan, and 7 years later I'm the associate head coach at Oakland and living here in Oakland County. Yeah.
What was like the most exciting point in your career?
Oh, that's a great question. I've had, some amazing experiences, but I think probably the two most exciting for me were the first time I went to the NCAA Tournament, when I was at Oakland the first time, and we hit a shot at the buzzer in the conference tournament finals, and it propelled us into the NCAA Tournament, and we won our first game. And the excitement and the enthusiasm that went with that was great, and that experience was awesome. And then I think that another one was when we were at Utah and we went to the NCAA Tournament. I think that those two moments were probably the most exciting for me. We got to wrap it up, don't we?
Yeah, does anyone we have time for one more. Does anyone have one more? Yeah, thank you.
Who's like a leader or that you look up to?
A leader that I look up to, my dad. My parents are both in education. They're retired now. They were teachers. And my dad became a building principal and superintendent. And, again, I think like all of you, when you're your age, you might not always appreciate or understand sometimes the things your parents do and say and things that they try to impact upon you. But as an adult, I really appreciate my father's leadership style, and not only with us as children, but with his staff. And I got to watch him pretty closely lead his administrative staff and lead his school district, and that was always really impactful for me. And I've got a lot of respect for him. I mean, obviously I love my dad, but I have a lot of respect for him and who he was professionally too.
All right.
Thank you very much. Very appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm ready to go. I love success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. You want to find those successful people in your life and say, hey, what are they doing? That's pretty cool. And keep that curiosity about what it takes to win in today's society. So we'll see you at our December session of the Winners Circle. Go to your classrooms and have a great day. All right.